Okay, we'll get started. So this is really a session just designed for to be an open forum for you folks to bring your questions, anything that's on your mind, anything you're concerned about, and we'll try to answer what we can. To be clear, we're not going to try to provide support here, right, in the context of a 30-minute session, but we'll try to, keep it high level. And if there's something we need to dive deeper into, we'll make sure we, get contact information and reach out to you. So we're hoping you guys brought some questions, and if not, we do have some common questions that we do get that we can review. So we'll open up the floor.
Are there any questions?
So I'm on the hosted version of Sage. I just want to know the capability of Sage 300 for dashboards.
For dashboards? So there's a couple of parts to that answer. In Sage 300 proper, there is no dashboarding capability. It's just not part of the technology. The web screens do have some dashboards, some decent dashboards across a variety of modules.
So web screens are available on Sage 300 because I'm not seeing.
It's available, so the question is it available on Sage 300? It's available on the Sage 300 web screens. So it will be available if you deployed those web screens. And so maybe just to get into that a little bit.
So you have to buy the web screen?
You do not. If you're on a subscription, so these are all really good questions, and questions that get asked a lot. So if you're on an active subscription for Sage 300, the web screens are included at no additional cost. So it really just becomes a choice from your point of view as to whether you want to deploy them. That choice is not an all or nothing. It's not a binary choice. You can run them side by side, right? So for example, you can keep running the classic Sage 300 desktop that you're used to. You don't have to worry about getting retrained, but you can also launch these web screens on the side, and maybe I do my regular tasks in Sage 300 Classic, but I pop into the web screens because I want to use the dashboards, and if I have time in the next session, I'll show a little bit of that functionality. A couple of things that you can do in the web screens that you cannot do in Sage 300 Classic, so dashboards is one of those things. So the technology is built into the web screens.
Like if you need graphs and things like that, right, as part of revenue and expenses. So now we are just doing it in our CRM, which is not with Sage, it's with another party, so it's kind of not working for us yet. Okay,
so that's the quick and dirty answer, is that's a real simple, quick way to get access to dashboards is using the web screens. They are predefined dashboards. There's some configuration that you can do with them, but not a ton. If you want true sort of more business intelligence and dashboards and sliders and some of that cool technology, then you should really be looking at something like Sage Enterprise Intelligence. Does that stuff really, really well, really slick, and it's a full-blown BI solution that'll automate that for you. So it's a question of whether you want to dabble in it and just do it very casually, or whether you want a proper solution.
But is Sage Intelligence also a part of the Sage 300, right? Which we get
so Sage Intelligence is part of 300, and you can do, because that lives in Excel, you can do in that solution anything that Excel can do. So you can do graphs and dashboards and sliders. So the latest version of Excel do some really cool things with sliders and dials and things. So if you're pulling data into the spreadsheet, which Sage Intelligence can do, then you can have little fiscal year and period dials, right, where you just click the button and the graph starts changing, right, because it's real time. So Sage Intelligence will do that. So I don't know if you're at James Tang's session this morning, but he talked about sort of the progression from financial reporter, make sure you're getting the most out of that. The next step up would be looking at Sage Intelligence. That is included, one license is included. If you want to deploy it out to 10 or 15 people, you would need to purchase viewer licenses for those. And then if you want to get really sophisticated, the Sage Enterprise Intelligence is a really cool, slick product that you could look at as well. Okay?
So for dashboards, you suggest web screens, Sage web screens.
For the Sage web screens do have dashboards built in. Yeah, some basic dashboards.
Thank you.
That's a very good question.
So I always like to talk about what does cloud mean, and cloud means different things to different people. If you talk to your IT guy, cloud, we use cloud with our phones every day. To really simplify it, I always like to define cloud as somebody else's server. So with the pandemic and people sort of working remotely, that notion of putting your data up in the cloud to make it easily accessible outside of your office. And the notion before 10, 15 years ago is you'd buy a server, you'd stick it in the dusty closet in the back of the office, you'd install Sage there, and it was sort of, everyone was in the office was connected to that server. The world just doesn't work like that much anymore. We've all sort of gone into these hybrid modes where we need to be able to access our data sort of anywhere. So this notion of moving to the cloud, Sage 300, I answered this question about 6 times today. The question was, can I put Sage 300 in the cloud? And the short answer is yes, and you have a couple of options of how to do that. You can sort of do self-hosted, so you can put Sage 300 in a cloud on a server that you own, or you can leverage, if anyone attended the LynetCo session today, Jamie had a great session about moving your Sage 300 to a cloud-hosted solution provider. And we have a sister company, LynetCo, in a process called Bass Cloud, where we host your Sage 300 installation. The LynetCo guys sort of do it top-notch. They take security very seriously. And they make it sort of easy so that you can access your Sage 300 sort of wherever you are, whether you're at the cottage and you need to check a report at 10 o'clock at night, you know, whether you're on vacation. Hopefully you're not checking Sage 300 when you're on vacation. But just that notion that we need to be able to access our data from anywhere. The other notion where this comes into play is if you have sort of limited IT resources. We have such a wide range of clients where they have internal IT, we have third-party IT, we have some people who sort of leverage LynetCo and Bass to some extent for their IT support. So if you have limited IT resources and you don't have to worry about, is my server being backed up and all that other stuff, and I don't want to worry about buying new server hardware every 2, 3, 4, 5 years, this sort of might make sense to move your Sage installation to a cloud. And from a sort of financial standpoint, it moves into more of a subscription thing. Instead of spending $10,000 on physical hardware and the IT support to sort of support that hardware and managing backups, you sort of pay a monthly fee to an ISV to sort of manage that for you. And they take care of all the backups, and it's sort of done without sort of any input from you, and it's sort of done automatically, and somebody else manages that process.
And I guess one of the key differentiators between the two, between Sage Intacct and Sage 300 in the cloud, is there's no environment for Sage Intacct. Sage Intacct is a cloud-based software as a service type product that lives in the cloud, so you don't need IT to manage it or to run it, to back it up or anything like that. That's all done by the Sage platform, versus something with Sage 300, you have the option and the flexibility to be able to run it on-prem as well as in the cloud. So you have that flexibility to choose the platform rather than thinking, well, I want my stuff, you know, the CEO or CFO has made a mandate, we need to move to the cloud. So scrap Sage 300 and let's find another product. Well, that's not necessarily always the right choice, because it also comes with a cost with onboarding new product. There's training, education, and stuff like that that has to happen. And if you're already familiar with the product, with Sage 300, then there's an opportunity to take that platform or take that existing environment and move it into like a Microsoft Azure, AWS, or even the Bass Cloud.
I'll maybe just make a couple of other points as well. The question was asked in the Meet Sage Canada session this morning, about that idea of, is Sage 300 going to go to the cloud?
Hey, do you want to move it up?
Oh, thank you. And what they said, and what we've observed, is that they've tried to take an approach that honestly is fair to the user base. He made the point of Microsoft with Great Plains and going to Business Central, where it was a forced decision, right? They just said, we're not doing this anymore, and you have to go to this new product, right? Whether you like it or not. And Sage has tried to walk that, fine line of recognizing that they have a large base of, Sage 300 clients that have been using that software for quite a while, and they didn't want to just yank the rug out from under, so they're trying to sort of do the best of both worlds, let you keep using what you have, but the web screens is one way of sort of coming into that new world. And increasingly what we're seeing is, again, what I call cloud where it counts, right? With connections to these cloud connected services. Did anybody look at Sage AP automation while they were here today? There was a session earlier, right? That's a perfect example, right? It's accounts payable automation, it's workflows, it's approvals, right? That needs to be in the cloud, right? And so that's a perfect example where I can run that in the cloud and it just pushes into the Sage 300 that I already have, right? I don't necessarily need to do a journal entry in a web browser, but doing accounts payable automation in the cloud, in a web browser, on mobile, right? That's essential. And so increasingly you'll see that's the focus. I had an email last week talking about some of these other cool new Sage, services that they've, purchased or they're developing. All these cloud-based services, and the focus is on, hey, let's get those working with Sage 300, right? So folks can take advantage of all this cool new cloud stuff that's happening, again, without ripping out your Sage 300 and forcing you to change wholesale to something else, right? So it's again, trying to give you the best of both worlds, cloud with historically what you've had.
And now I'm on Sage 300, but 2021, so not like an old version. But I'm still being, for my server, I have been recommended to be hosted by a third party, by BAS only, called Strategico. So, I mean, I even have to pay them some hosting fee because I needed financial reporter, and for some time Sage was not supporting that. So there was an issue, but has this been resolved? Because I just see there's a duplication. I'm on a hosted version and I'm still paying a server fee, which is not a big amount, but I'm still paying a monthly fee. So is any solution found for that?
Well, it's not a solution. It's just a question of, there is no free lunch, right? And so if you're paying Sage, for example, to host Sage Intacct for you, it's true software as a service, the price of that product reflects that, right? Because they're managing all the backups, all the IT infrastructure, all the data management, everything, the cybersecurity that goes along with that.
So I have a question. I never used to pay before. This all happened when when the platform moved in Sage in 2018, and then I was told, no, the Sage cannot do that for you, so you have to find someone. So initially, BAS hosted me for some months, and then they moved me to Strategicos, and it's been long now. It's more than 3-4 years, and there should be a solution, right? So if I'm on a hosted version, and Sage used to host my server for all those years, I've been with Sage from 2000.
Sage used to host your server, or?
Initially, Sage used to host my server. Then I was upgraded in 2018, and then they said, no, Sage can't do that. There's some issue. So then BAS hosted me for a few months, and then they moved me to Strategicos, where I pay a monthly fee.
Yes, gotcha.
Yeah.
So
is there a solution for this? Because I just don't find that with so much technology changes, this should not happen, right? Because I'm paying an annual fee to Sage, I'm paying to Strategicos, and I'm paying to BAS for any other.
So here's how it worked, and to simplify it, right? Sage has dipped their toes in this on and off over the last decade. We want to do hosting, we want to allow people to go in the cloud. And they've gone into it, they've pulled back, it's looked a couple of different ways, and they finally just said, we're not doing this anymore. And what they've committed to now is what they call Sage Partner Cloud, which is you're going to have your business partner host it for you if you want a turnkey solution. You can have your IT provider do it for you. When you did that through Sage, you paid a premium, right? So you paid a higher price. If someone was hosting it themselves, that subscription fee they paid was lower than what you were paying, right? And so when you of that, you should have gone to a lower price for your Sage subscription, and the difference is what you turned around and invested into your hosting provider, right? So it's like I said, you're paying for that hosting. I don't understand what you mean by solution.
Like an all-in-one, I think.
An all-in-one.
Because now I'm like dependent on more people.
Yep.
My server is with some third party. I'm with Sage. I'm paying the annual subscription to Sage. And then if I need any help, my partner is back. So
yes.
I just wanted to be consolidated. So
I understand that. And I guess the only thing I could say is that, if you're concerned about, when you ask for support and people are passing the buck saying, well, that's not our fault, contact BAS, or, that's a Sage problem, whatever. All I can say is if you're not happy with that support, our BAS cloud option.
No, it's not about not being happy. I have
It's just
a lot of
centralization.
It's just that so many people involved, and then Strategicos is a third party. I did have some issues with them too, but I had no choice.
Okay, so that's what I was going to say is we do offer through Linetco what we call BAS Cloud, where the hosting is done by our sister company. And clients will ask me that, is this a good choice? And I say, yeah, those guys are excellent, and they're integrated with us, right? So when we host you on BAS Cloud, they set it all up. It's turnkey. They give us everything we need to support you. They set up login accounts and passwords and everything. So it's more seamless. It's really the same company providing that service.
Now, to summarize it, still there's no solution with Sage yet.
Nothing with Sage.
And there won't be. Right? There won't be. The folks from Sage Canada said that this morning. We do not have plans to turn Sage 300 into a software as a service cloud product, right? And the reason is that doing that would just break so many things, all of the third-party solutions that so many people use, right? It just completely changes the architecture of the way the product works, and we'd have to really disrupt the businesses of so many of our customers. We don't want to do that. We're going to give you an option if you want pure cloud. Sage Intacct is that solution if it's a good fit for you, but we're not going to transform Sage 300 into a hosted software as a service product, if that answers the question. Yeah, these are really good questions. They're questions we get every day, and I think it's difficult, you know, again, to explain what cloud is because it can mean so many things.
On a third party because I don't know them, right?
Yes.
I would be more comfortable if I'm being hosted by Sage or by BAS.
Yes.
I have a relationship with them.
Yes, and that was the idea behind, you know, what Sage calls the Sage Partner Cloud, is that you can have these approved vendors. We sort of do it a little bit differently with BAS Cloud, but it is the same idea, where it's one-stop shop. The buck stops with us. If you're not happy, if we're trying to support you and something's not right, we call the Lanetco guys, and, you know, we get top priority, right? Because we're all in the same boat. We're trying to help you, the customer. So I would highly recommend them if you have any concerns about hosting. They're a very good option.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Good questions.
You want to ask a question? Absolutely. Absolutely. We love questions. That's why we're here.
So there's also a difference, as I understand it, between a private cloud and a shared server where, say, BAS Cloud has Sage installed and we have 5 or 6 different customers using it. In that case, my understanding is we can't use certain third-party products or certain customizations, maybe just some custom reports, but nothing really fancy. Right?
So that's a good question, and that's outdated information. So that really goes back to the question that was being asked before. If you were having Sage host it, because they would be deploying to so many different customers, they wanted a standardized environment, and they wanted to control it. And they said, we're only going to approve specific modules, specific third-party products, and so you were really, kept in a certain lane about what you could do.
That was a deterrent, right?
Yeah, and it was a deterrent because that's part of the strength of Sage 300 is you can do so many cool things, so many different add-ins. And if you were hosting with Sage, they said, nope, that's not on the list. You can't do that. You can't do this. And you had to sort of run vanilla Sage 300. So that is not the case anymore because that Sage 300 hosting, Sage 300 Online, whatever they called it, doesn't exist anymore. So when we do it with either your strategic hosting or with BAS Cloud, we got carte blanche. We can do whatever we like. Yeah, good, very good question. Thank you, Heather.
Is it difficult to merge Sage 300 to the SEI, or that's a different?
No, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Is it difficult to merge or integrate Sage 300 into the SEI product, the Nectari product? You've looked at that? Intelligence, yes. So the beauty about that product and some of the products you'll see here, with Sage 300, because it's a standard Microsoft SQL backend database, you can point anything at it, any business intelligence tool, Microsoft Power BI, Excel data queries, Excel, Power Automate, all these things. You can point at the Sage data. The problem with that is you kind of need to know what you're looking at because you're now looking at the back end. You're not looking at your familiar Sage 300 screens. You need to know the data structure. When you're working with something like Sage Enterprise Intelligence, they do all that work for you. So they give you friendly names. I want to report on GL, those sorts of things. So the short answer is yes, it's easy because it's designed to be easy to be used by end users, those products. They're not completely drag and drop. They're going to give you lots of predefined options for reporting on GL transactions, purchases, sales orders, and things. If you want to go beyond that, you may need to have a little bit of in-house experience, like a data analyst type person, right? It's not a skill set that everybody will have, but by and large, you can use that product yourself to do like pivot table type analysis and drag and drop and things without needing to ask us to customize a report. They're designed to be, user-centric. It doesn't mean that you're going to completely be able to do every wild and crazy request you're going to get for some fancy report. You may need to call in help at some points, but generally they are designed to be user-facing, unlike something like Crystal Reports where you generally have to ask us to do it for you. Does that answer your question? Yeah. And those are, I love that Sage Enterprise Intelligence tool. It is a really slick tool. It's nice. It's, it sells itself. It looks fancy. You get to do really cool stuff. And if you have, C-level type, people in the organization, you put that in front of them and it's, it sells itself.
Yeah, I would like to know what planning software you could integrate with Sage 300 and also for budgeting as well, financial reporting and budgeting.
Yeah. I'd say, were you at the first session this morning with James Tang? Okay. So there are a number of solutions that will do, budgeting, that'll do like SEI, that will do, advanced reporting. There's one that's really cool that merges the two. It's a product called True Sky. And if you're interested in that sort of thing, again, it's really slick. So what it'll do is it'll help you create budgets at a very detailed level, right? Multi-departmental, multi-location, roll-ups, calculations of, full-time equivalents times cost, right? So not just typing a number into a GL account, by month. It's like, how did you get to that number? And it helps you build that up, push it back into Sage 300, and then pull the actuals out, and it's a whole integrated solution. It's very slick. And what I like about it, I said in an earlier session about, Excel being a crutch for a lot of people. It lives in Excel, but it gets rid of all the bad habits that people have in Excel, which is, I got 1 million documents and there's different copies and there's links between the documents and it's a mess, right? What this does is it takes all that cool stuff inside Excel, but the Excel is really just a front end for a back-end database. So if I add a row because I want to, change the way I budget a certain line item, that doesn't really get saved inside Excel, even though you're looking at it in Excel, it gets written into a back-end database. So no matter who's, using it, it doesn't matter if they've got the most current version of the file, they're working in that controlled environment, and it's going to get a consistent rollout. So for example, if you develop a budget model, right, and you've rolled it out to 50 locations and 20 departments, and then you realize, oh, we got to change the way we're calculating this line, you don't need to send out, 100 new spreadsheets. You just update the model, and the next time they open it, it's there. It is really slick, and again, if you're asking those questions, you really need to look at a True Sky demo. You'll be blown away. It's really nice.
We all love the Excel.
Yeah, everybody
very
loves
close
Excel.
to my heart, very close.
This morning we heard about Lockstep.
Yes.
Okay, what's the difference between Lockstep and what Quadient offers for AP and AR?
I have the same question. Yeah, that's a really good question. There is some overlap there. I've only seen early information. I got some information last week about their plans to integrate in Lockstep. That is their next, I think, highest priority, I think already in development, already on the roadmap for release in terms of integration with Sage 300. So as I understand it, it does have some overlap, but I think it has a little bit of, AI in it in terms of suggesting and bubbling up stuff to the surface about, you should be looking at this, you're late on that one, or this customer hasn't paid, that sort of thing. But honestly, they just haven't shown us much of it yet.
So if we don't have Quadient yet and are looking or considering it, should we wait then?
I really wish I could answer that question for you. What I can say is the Lockstep, what they're doing with a lot of these connected services is they're going with the freemium model, if you've heard of that approach, right? Which is that the first one's free, they dangle it in front of you, and so they give you a little bit. And that's what they're planning to do with Lockstep, which is if you're on a Sage 300 subscription, you're just going to get Lockstep for free, the basic features, and then if you want the more advanced stuff, then you can subscribe to those. But like I said, I really wish I could answer for that question. I just haven't seen enough of Lockstep yet. I took a quick 10-minute look the other day because they're asking for our input about prioritizing these integrations. But that's really all I've seen of it so far. So if you want to leave me your contact information, that's something we'll be looking at in the coming weeks and months, and I can certainly reach out to you with more information as I get it. Thank you. The one question that one of our folks sent in, I'll maybe just touch on really quickly, that comes in a lot is, can I change my chart of accounts, right? Either I inherited a mess or I'm funded by some external agency and they're requiring me to report on a totally different basis. They just changed it on us and we don't have any say. So there are some good changer utilities available for free in the Sage 300 product, and that allow you to retroactively change, right? So if I want to change an account number to something else, it'll change all of my history, it'll change transactions in progress, open batches, everything. And that exists for general ledger accounts, for customers, for vendors, and for inventory items. Okay, so allow you to change numbering to merge accounts or inventory items. And they're very good tools. And they're, again, free to use. Depending on the extent of changes that you're doing, if you're doing one-offs, then you can manage that yourself. If you're doing wholesale changes, completely redesigning a chart of accounts, you should probably reach out to us. We can give you some best practices for planning that project and testing it out. But otherwise, those tools are free. Okay, I think that's our time.
I think that's it. Thank you all very much. We'll wrap up and go into the next session.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.